We can get going. We have a lighter load today. Which I expected after the holiday. So if you guys have any, we can open this up to general questions. I don't think this will take the full hour. So if you guys have any other just general questions, please, we can open that up for after I get through the presentation on advertising and lead generation from a compliance perspective. And then I'll also let you guys know that in the month of December, we're going to every single Monday will just be a Q&A based off of what we've gone over the past year. So and a lot of times those Q&A sessions really, they foster a lot of conversation and a lot of discussion. So we really encourage you guys to come to those still. It's just kind of good to learn from examples, hear other people's questions. At this point in your careers, you don't really know what you don't know, so just still encourage everybody to come on Mondays in December. So we'll probably roll out the training calendar in tomorrow's team meeting. So but with that, we'll just go over advertising and marketing and some do's and don'ts and some reminders. And I'll also end this with just kind of going over the different types of listings that we have as well. So hi, Joni, just see you coming on.
Hello, sorry I'm a little late.
It's okay. I just to recap, Joni, I had indicated that this probably won't take the full hour. So we can open it up to questions afterward. And then I also put in a plug for December and our Q&A sessions in December as well. So
perfect. Yeah.
All right. So general real estate advertising rules. The Wisconsin Code states there are 4 cardinal rules that all licensees must follow when engaging in advertising, regardless of whether it is written, verbal, or electronic. So advertising cannot be false, deceptive, or misleading, of course. Advertising must include the firm name. And believe it or not, we actually get a lot of people who forget this. Property may be advertised only with a signed listing contract. And if you're going to include the listing price in your advertising, the owner must agree on this price, of course. Move this, sorry. So here are some examples of some compliant advertising. So this could be a social media post, this could be a postcard, but you'll see here, and I've got, trying to move my, there we go. So you'll see, we're using J. Schmidt Group as an example here. You'll see, Gallagher Company first. We've got the KW logo here in the corner, the team logo here in the other corner. On this right-hand side, we've got, again, the KW logo here. We just have to, again, there are different forms of the Keller Williams logo, but we just need to make sure that we're including our firm's name in any advertising. Another example, so we've got the KW logo down here in the bottom right-hand corner. These are old examples. Jay does not use this logo for himself anymore. But regardless, KW Luxury Homes International, a division of Keller Williams Realty, again, just another example of a compliant advertising. Advertising the firm name and social media. So this is where it kind of gets a little trickier. just based off of limitations of social media and with texting. So advertising the firm name may not always be practical in electronic displays that have, allow only so many characters. So such displays are exempt from the disclosure requirement established in the standard of practice, but only when it's linked to a display that includes all required disclosures. So there's this kind of one click away rule, so that if, let's say, you're advertising something on social media, and it does not include, your handle does not include the firm name, that is fine, but as long as the link to your website includes the firm name. So it's like this one click away rule. So if I were to click on, let's say my advertising handle was just Swinney and Associates, which is how I advertise my my sales business. As long as I click on my handle and it leads me to my Facebook page that includes that Keller Williams, that I work for Keller Williams, then we're okay. Best practice though, if you are creating business pages, whether it's for Instagram or for social media, or for Facebook, is to include the firm name right in the handle. So I have to confirm what mine says. But I think mine is Swinney and Associates with an underscore KW attached. So then you'll just avoid any confusion about it at all, and just include it in your Instagram handle. Now, moving on to when we are advertising other people's listings. So this is an example of a compliant Facebook post. So Robin McCormick of Keller Williams, she does not have, this is not her listing, but she is advertising it for somebody else. So you can see outstanding European estate and quiet countryside in Nashotah, an exceptional property awaits the next owner. Call to schedule a private showing, and she's got her phone number in there, which is fine, but she's attributing the listing to who it belongs to. So listed by Katie Thomas of Team Trimble and Keller Williams Lake Country. An extension of this too is that she needed to get the permission from Katie and from Team Tribble in order to advertise this at all on her Facebook page. So, first step is to go to the listing agent and get their permission to advertise it. Second step is to cite them in the actual Facebook post. And then with the one click away rule, this is Robin. She's just advertising as Robin McCormick, but then if you see at the bottom of the Facebook post, she's got Robin McCormick realestate.kw.com, and then this link that she has here will take her right to her own personal website page that'll show the Keller Williams name. Any questions so far? Okay.
Steph, I do have a question.
Yes.
Can you just put the Keller Williams, instead of having it as part of a handle, can you just like put a hashtag or something in there, Keller Williams?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
You could do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good question. So attributing the source. So I actually had this out of sync, so out of order here. So agents can be found liable to a buyer for inaccurate statements made by the broker that appear to the buyer to have been made from the broker's own personal knowledge. A lot of this will be, you'll find this most often in MLS descriptions. And then consider general disclaimers on all advertisements to avoid the presumption that all statements made by a licensee have been verified and are personally known to be true by the licensee. So in our MLS private remarks. I always make it a practice to say room sizes and square footage have not been verified by the broker. So just another kind of CYA for ourselves. You don't need to put that in the public remarks, but you'll need to put that in the private remarks. Photographs. So often when we get an accepted offer on a property, we're really excited about it. We want to put it on our Facebook pages. So let's say I got an accepted offer on one of Joni's listings, and I want to use one of the listing photographs in a Instagram post or a Facebook post. I would need to get her permission first in order to use that photo. So please make sure that when you do get an accepted offer and you want to include a picture in that post right from the MLS listing, that we're getting permission from our co-brokes on that. And, oftentimes these, requests, they can just be quick texts, so, last accepted offer I got from a co-broke, I just quick text, hey, can I use the exterior shot in a Facebook post, and they'll say yes or no. So, don't overthink like how to ask, it can be just a quick text to somebody. And then also if you are going to relist a property, and you want to use any old photographs, we need to get permission from the prior broker. So that also includes sellers who might say, oh, I've got the old photos from when it was listed with my prior company, we can use those. We will need to get permission from the actual broker, not the seller themselves. So I think best practice is just to get your own. But sometimes there are, maybe some seasonal shots that you want to use that the old broker took. Again, it's just getting permission to use. They're not up for grabs. Advertising other firms' listings. So this would be, there's inter-office, intercompany permission, so again, if I wanted to advertise one of Joni's listings, I would go to her directly, but the same rules apply for, if I wanted to use a Shore West agents, if I wanted to advertise one of their listings, I would need to, of course, go to that agent and ask for their permission. That doesn't happen too often, but sometimes when there's a really cool property that people want to showcase and highlight in their Facebook feeds, I do see it rarely, but I do see sometimes that agents will advertise other companies' listings as well. So agents must clearly, oh, go ahead, Joni.
We had a question about that. Someone saw a posting of a listing in Facebook. I think it was a post from Business Insider, actually, but it was listed by another agent. But what agent was calling about, she shared it, or she was about to share it in Facebook, that post of that listing in another firm. And she was saying, all I'm doing is just sharing a Facebook post. And I said, no, you're advertising that listing. And even just to share a post like that needs to get permission.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it's not just because we're sharing like the business journals advertisement of it, we still need to get permission from the broker themselves. And then just a quick note about IDX feeds. So when operating a public website or applications for mobile devices, the participant must comply with IDX rules. The only thing that I'm going to say about this is that the platform that we use within KW Command already complies to these rules. So if there's anybody out there, and I'm even hesitant to mention it, but if some of us want to get and hire third-party sites to do our websites, we need to make sure that they are already complying with IDX rules. And I'll hop on Charlie's train with that. And, there's really literally no reason why any of us need to hire a third party company to do our own websites. The websites that we use through Command are fantastic, and they are already tailored to what a buyer and a consumer is looking for when it comes to a website, and that's the searchable function. So moving on. So the do not call list. So an independent contractor, agent, licensee, or broker associate of the market center making telephone solicitation calls or text to a Wisconsin resident to encourage the recipient of the call to consider purchasing property, goods, or services must register with both the National Do Not Call Registry and the state of Wisconsin's solicitor registration. So we as a brokerage we are not on Do Not Call Registry. You have to sign up as an independent agent. It is very expensive. I'm just going to say to us if you have questions about this. A lot of times that if you're going to be signing up for like a third party solicitation service, like a dialer, they are already have taken steps to get on these national do not call registries and the Wisconsin registration. And that's part of what you're paying for through them. So, I think it's just making sure that is part of, and they'll advertise that, but if you're going to pay for a dialer to make sure that they're on the do not call registry, of course, I don't know offhand if any of our agents have actually signed up individually for the registration. But if you do have questions about that, please call us and we can get you the information that you need. But the basically though, you need to have and ensure that they are not on the do not call registry before you make solicitation phone calls. So that's to a FSBO, to expired listings. And this is all in order to solicit any brokerage services. So very important. The fines are pretty hefty for these.
The distinction there is if you are a buyer's agent and you have a client that is interested in a property, say a FSBO or an expired listing or something, just a house on a block. If you are a buyer's agent, you are calling on behalf of that buyer who might be interested in that property. You are not soliciting that seller to list their house or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's a distinction. You must have buyer agency if you're going to be calling on a for sale by owner. And then the do not call thing is not in effect because you're calling on behalf of a buyer, and that's what they want. They want a buyer. They don't want a real estate agent soliciting them, but they sure would like a buyer that may come with a real estate agent.
Thank you for that. Yes. Flyers and mailers. So any print advertising and flyers must include the statement that each Keller Williams office is independently owned and operated. If you have a brokerage relationship with another agency, this is not intended as a solicitation. So if you have any questions about if you're going to do some print advertising, sending out a mailer, run it by either myself or Joni or Lindsay, Veranek, and just to make sure that we are complying with, or Kathleen Wooten, complying with the necessary disclaimers that we need on any print advertising. So, okay, MLS rules review. So, just wanted to kind of go over the different types of listings that we have as well. So, and more importantly, advertising within MLS excluded parameters. So if an agent has a listing agreement and the seller does not authorize the placement of the listing on MLS, therefore making it an MLS excluded listing, The agent markets the property through informal networks. So with an MLS excluded listing, it means you have a listing contract, but you can only, and this is to comply with clear cooperation policy, verbally market the property. So this is very important. There are very hefty fines for this. If you have an MLS excluded listing, you cannot hop on social media and hop on our KW sites and let people know that you have an MLS excluded listing. You have to pick up the phone and call each agent and let them know of your MLS excluded listing and to see if they have a buyer. And this is why it's, you know, not an advantage for a seller to have their home only under MLS excluded status. You know, they're not opening it up to the full market and therefore, you know, yielding the best possible offers available to them. So, you know, it's really a big conversation with a seller when they want to have an excluded property. So, and it's more work for you to have an MLS excluded property as well. So, but I just cannot stress enough that the importance of not putting anything in print when it comes to an MLS excluded listing. This also applies to emails. You cannot send an email blast out to the office sharing your MLS excluded listing. You have to and only can call to inform other agents about it. Again, I think the fine is $1,000 a day. So they're serious.
And also you have to put the property as market as active within 24 hours.
Right. So if you do, you know, if you happen to email it out, if you happen to put it on MLS, I'm sorry, put it on social media, you have to get it in within MLS within that 24 hours, as Joni said. Then another thing I want to remind people about when it comes to MLS excluded listings is that we need to notify MLS of its existence. So, you know, right now our rule is that any listing contract that you get signed, you must get it into MLS within 48 hours of the term start date. And with an active listing, it's easy for MLS to see that because, you know, it goes active, they're checking that constantly. If there's an MLS excluded listing though, we need to email them a copy of the contract and the MLS excluded form to make them aware of it. And same rule applies. It needs to be emailed over to them within that 48 hours of the listing start date. So any questions about that? Okay. The delayed status. So the delayed status is different from MLS excluded status. I also like to call this, and when I'm bringing this up to a seller, I call this the coming soon status as well. You know, for public, the public can understand the coming soon status more than, you know, the term delayed. So this is when you're going to use this delayed status when the seller and the realtor desire no showings for limited time period due to the sellers preparing for the property for future showings. So, you know, as a listing agent, you want to get that contract signed and, you know, signed sealed so that, you know, you can continue to start working on the property with the seller. You want to make sure that you have a signed contract before you invest too much time, right? Then at the same rate, the seller is not necessarily ready to show the property. And so they can use this time. This is an old slide, oops, up to 21 days to have the property in delayed status. So you're going to enter it into MLS. When you enter it into MLS, there's an option to to go from active to delayed, you're going to put the showing start date. Again, you've got up to 21 days. You don't have to use that full 21 days, but you can go up to that 21 days. And it'll just hang out in MLS. It will not go into, the listing will not be syndicated to any other websites. You know, so much of the time I'll see people just have one photo when it's in the delayed status. And then in the public remarks, they'll just say it's coming soon, and then they'll have that showing start date. But then, so again, you know, assuming we have an example of an agent and a seller who wants to use that full 21 days, they'll use the next 21 days to continue getting the house ready. You know, you can get your pictures taken during this time, continue cleaning, staging might be happening during this 21-day period. You are free to, because this is delayed status and not MLS excluded, you are free to advertise the property as coming soon. The most important part about this time period, though, is that you are not and cannot show it to anybody. So, you know, sometimes we'll get a question of, can I have a broker's open during the delayed period? No. If someone comes to you and says, oh, I've got a buyer coming in from out of town who is only here that weekend, and I see that showings don't start for another 2 weeks on this, can we get them in? Absolutely not. So that is the one hard and steadfast rule when it comes to the delayed period. You cannot show it at all. And again, this is all under the clear cooperation policy. We're not, you know, if it's going to be opened up to one person, we have to open it up to the entire market. And that is the reasoning behind it. Another comment though I'll make about the delayed status, and we're not seeing this so much anymore with our crazy competitive market, but we have seen people submit offers sight unseen on properties in the delayed status. That is actually fine. A buyer can absolutely submit an offer sight unseen. A seller can accept an offer when it's sight unseen. Again, they just cannot show it. So it's a risk to a buyer. And again, we're not seeing that as much, but I just did want to cover that question. So again, in this delayed status, you can put it out on Facebook. You know, you can let people know that it exists. You can, one thing that's cool about the delayed status too, is that you can still email an MLS link to a prospective buyer. And they can get the bulk of the data about the property via that MLS link. It's just not going to be syndicated out to those third-party websites. So like Zillow or Realtor.com, you know, all of those common websites that people search for properties on. So once that day 21 comes though, and that showing start date comes, then it goes active. And then from there, it is syndicated out to those third-party sites, and you can start showings on that day. Another thing to note about the MLS delayed status is that you can always push a delayed status back. So let's say you and the seller agree, like, oh, we only need 10 days to get the house ready. If it's, you know, day 9 rolls around and you're like realizing you're not able to go active as planned, you can push that time back, but you cannot push it up. So you need to just be aware of that as well. So you want to be kind of mindful of that when you are picking which day to go live. Yeah, I think it's a really cool tool though, actually, the delayed status. You know, I think it's nice to be able to kind of just pump people up and kind of use it up as a hype method for advertising it as coming soon. So, you know, again, you'll just kind of build that into your marketing plans. Otherwise, Again, you're going to take a listing and then you will put it into MLS within that 48 hours. So, any questions about the delayed status? Okay,
Yeah, the slide says 15, it should be 21.
it should be 21. Yep. These are some, picked up some slides from a Kimmy training, so that's why. One party listings and FSBOs, so MLS rules around one party listings and for sale by owner. So you are required to report all sold listings to the MLS. So if you have a listing that is a one party listing, which is a specific buyer to a specific property, you would submit all of the required paperwork as you would with a new listing, including a photo after it closes. So after the listing is entered into the computer system, so and given an MLS number, so have this one party listing, it's not going to go into MLS until and if it closes. You'll enter it into MLS and you're going to immediately change the status to the sold status. And then in the public remarks, it's generally fine just to say one party listing, this is sold and closed, entered for informational purposes. And again, you guys won't remember all of this, so when you have a one party listing, you'll just come to us when you have a question about it once it closes. For sale by owner deals, you're going to enter the listing into the system as normal. In the public remarks, you're going to say that it was a for sale by owner. You're going to upload a main exterior photo that you have taken, and you're going to load the buyer agency agreement in lieu of a listing agreement, because you did not have the listing that was a for sale by owner, but you brought the buyer, and you must have a buyer agency agreement when you sell a for sale by owner. So after uploading those items, you are going to change the status from listing to sold, and then you're going to call MLS or email them, and you're going to let them know that this was actually a for sale by owner, and they'll change the listing agent from you to what's called non-MLS. We cannot do that on our end, but they can quickly make that change once we load it into MLS. Again, just come to us when you have questions and when you sell when you sell a for sale by owner. But this is great for you guys because it allows you to get the credit for the sale. So my job right now is just to plant this in your head, but now to come to us when you have it. Accepted offers. So once there's an accepted offer, this must be reported within 48 hours as either active with offer. So the seller has an offer, but the seller is still allowing showings of the property and is taking secondary offers. So that's what that active with offer status means, or pending. So again, there is an offer on the property, but the seller is no longer showing the property. And they just want to put it in pending status to let the public know that they no longer want showings. If there is a home sale contingency on a home, this is the one exception to changing the status. Again, I'll just say come to us if you have a listing that you accept an offer with a home sale contingency. With that home sale contingency, to give the seller some more incentive for accepting a home sale contingency offer, they are allowed to continue to market the home as active. So we need to, though, make sure that we're informing at least other brokerages of this. So we'll put that in a private remark. Again, see us though, once you accept an offer as a listing agent with a home sale contingency. Failure to report an accepted offer may result in a $10 per day fine. Another note, short sale properties shall indicate acceptance of an offer at the time the seller has accepted the offer, even if the bank has yet to approve the offer as submitted. So This won't come up very often, but if you are dealing with short sales as a listing agent, you're gonna have a lot of questions. But when it comes to accepting an offer, we still do need to mark it in MLS as a accepted offer. Okay. So the MLS listing status, we'll just quickly go over these. So a new or active listing in MLS is a property that is available to an agent and the broker members of the MLS. Available means that the listing can be actively shown and actively receive offers. If a listing does not meet the available requirements, it cannot be active. New listings require a new listing contract. You cannot enter a listing as new with an amendment. So to clarify this, if you have an MLS, or sorry, if you have a listing that maybe has been hanging out for a while and you want to market it as a new listing because it's, you know, maybe you have a new price and you want to like kick it back out to the public, you can expire a listing and sign a new listing agreement and re-enter it into MLS as a new listing. So just to clarify what that means, when it says that you cannot enter a listing as new with an amendment, you need to actually have a new listing contract altogether. Again, with our competitive and low inventory market, that's not happening as much. But that's one tool you can use if you've got a listing that has kind of been hanging out for a long time and you want to kind of refresh it in a way. So active with offer indicates that the property has an accepted offer. However, the listing brokers is able to continue to show the property and accept secondary offers. These listings will continue to appear in active searches. So I think this is important to make a distinction between active listings and active with offer listings, especially when it comes to buyer consultations and making sure that buyers understand what an active with offer listing is and how it looks in MLS. So those active with offer listings are always going to have that yellow C, meaning contingent. So if you've got a buyer reaching out to you about a property that is active with offer, you know, you can always let them know that we can try and show it, that you'll probably want to get more information from the listing agent to see if it's worth showing and if it's worth putting in an offer. So pending listing, the listing has an accepted offer. The listing broker is not required to continue showings. The pending date should reflect the date the offer was accepted. So pending, you know, you're going to put it in pending status usually once you're through all contingencies on an offer, or if you have an offer that came through that didn't have any contingencies at all, you've got a cash offer, no inspection, no appraisal, excuse me, then you can put it in pending status right away. Expired listing, so the listing contract has been canceled by an amendment before the expiration date. Withdrawn listing, if a seller no longer wants you to market their property, but you as a listing broker agent do not want to release from their contract, that listing could be put in as withdrawn. So while the listing is in the status of withdrawn, it is not available for anyone, including the listing company, to show. So you know, sometimes sellers need to suspend showings for a time. You're going to put it in that withdrawn status in order to communicate that it's not being allowed for showings. Another reason why you would want to do a withdrawn listing is if you've got a seller who wishes to get out of their contract, we as a brokerage don't want to necessarily release them from that contract, but they want to suspend showings, we'll put it in that withdrawn listing status until it expires naturally per the terms of the original listing contract. Another status in MLS is the sold listing. So the property has sold and closed. Properties must be reported as sold within 10 days of closing, or sanctions may be levied. Extended listing. So the seller signed an amendment to the listing contract extending the expiration date. So if you've got a property that's about to expire, hasn't sold yet, you can always extend that original listing contract to reflect a new expiration date, and then you'll change that in MLS once you get that, so that it does not automatically expire itself based off of the old expiration date. Delayed listing, we just went over that. If you're going to put it into delayed, you need to get the MLS delayed form filled out as well. And then you'll put that with your listing contract when you upload it to MLS. It is understood that unless seller has consented to the terms of the MLS exclusion form, the listing agent or brokerage may not show a property where showings and or ability to submit offers are not being offered to cooperative agent and brokers. A property may not be in delayed status longer than, and I'm going to correct this, 21 days. And a distinction between MLS delayed status and an MLS excluded status. You can show a property when it's excluded. You just can't advertise it. So unless again, it's verbally. Because there are, there are legitimate reasons out there that sellers don't want to have it advertised and in MLS. So that allows you to show it. But again, it's just what prohibits you. The restriction again is just that verbal marketing only. And I think that's my last slide. So I also wanted to, let's see here. How many of you are left? 9 of us are left. Okay. Let me see. Oh, no, I don't want that. It's 12:43. I wanted to go over some, I'm just going to read these and maybe I'll share my screen to pull it up, but and I also just want to put in a plug for the WRA's legal hot tips. So I'm going to go back and share my screen again. So this is true of any question that you have. Another resource, beyond coming to Joni and myself, or the contract helpline, is the WRA legal hot tips. So you can search for a question in the hot tip library. So when you go to WRA.org, you'll go to legal, the hot tip library. You can search for questions by topic. So oftentimes, if I get a question that I don't know how to answer, I'll say, let me get back to you, and I'll consult the WRA hot tip library first to see if somebody has already asked that question. This is a really, really great resource. So I did want to highlight this as well and just and make sure that people understand that this is available to them. But I just did a quick search for advertising this morning to see if there was anything else that we could talk about, and there's just some general questions in here, some questions that could easily come up for you. So I'll just go to this first question. So a seller has, and these are just coming directly from agents to you guys. I want to make sure that that's understood. So an agent, you as an agent can write to the WRA directly, and they will answer your questions. So you can call the legal hotline, or you can email in a question. So these are all from agents like us. So a seller has a property listed with a limited service company. The seller is friends with a licensee not associated with a listing firm. So, let's say I've got a friend and they decided to go with Joni, who is going to charge them much less. She works for a limited service company, but they want me to help them market it as well. So the seller friend comes to me and says, seller's friends with licensee not associated with the listing firm, and the sellers asked the licensee friend to do some additional marketing of the property on social media. Can the licensee friend do a virtual open house, advertise any advertising or showings if the licensee gets written permission from the seller and the listing firm? So the licensee, me, can advertise the property, including doing a virtual open house and social media advertising, as long as I get permission and the consent from the listing firm. So I would come to Joni and ask her and get her consent. So as of 2017, a firm must have a listing contract to advertise a property for a seller or have the permission of the listing firm. With regard to listings from other brokers or firms, the agent must have specific consent to advertise, because an agent may not advertise the listings of other firms without permission. The licensee will also want to make sure any advertising is not false, deceptive, or misleading. So when doing something such as a virtual open house or social media marketing, the licensee will want to make sure that advertisements do not make it look like the licensee is with the listing firm. So that's also key. You know, a lot of times we'll see agents post other people's listings and it just looks like it's one of their own, and that is where the deception comes into play. So it's about you know, courtesy and respect for citing the agent as the listing firm, but it's also just deceptive to make it seem like it's your own listing. So
Yeah, I want to add in here too. I mean, this is a definite resource that Steph and I use to further explain some of the situations that you're calling in on. And the other thing to realize that these answers in legal hot tips are answers by attorneys.
yes,
And Steph and I are not attorneys, and we make that pretty clear. But this is an attorney response. The only thing that you'll discover is that their answers are pretty broad, because they're CYAing also, and they're not making specific solutions to specific questions. They're giving generally what the licensing laws and the code of ethics and things like that say, but they are also, their answers sometimes are pretty broad. But it is a great place for you to research or to look into something that may be an issue that you're dealing with.
yeah. Yeah, that's probably the biggest point about all of that, is that these are answered by attorneys, so you're getting it straight from the source. I liked this question. Is there if there's a property on the MLS, can the licensee send letters out about the property to try to sell it? Can she advertise the property when she doesn't have a contract with the owners? So we're gonna get a similar answer here. But let's see here. Advertising without agency agreement is prohibited. A firm and a licensee associated with the firm may not advertise a property unless one of the following applies. The firm is the listing firm for the property. The firm or licensee associated with the firm has obtained consent to advertise the property. The fact that the property is listed in the MLS does not give a cooperating broker the authority to advertise the property by any means, whether it's print or electronically. If the information is obtained from the MLS, it may only be used with the authority or consent given under the MLS rules. But I wanted to highlight this specific part about this answer. So MLS rules provide that MLS property listing data may be distributed based on the interest of prospective purchasers. So it is intended that the listing data be provided to prospective purchasers with a bona fide interest in purchasing, or in which the participant is seeking to promote interest. Factors include how closely the types of properties are in accord with the prospective purchaser's expressed desires and ability to purchase. So before distributing MLS information at all, consider whether the information is being used to is being used in a pull or push scenario. And this is what I liked. Pull is when a prospective purchaser has expressed interest in a specific property or type of property, and the broker may pull out the MLS information in response to that purchaser's request. Push is when, and this is where it's, you know, a no-no, push is when the broker is selecting information about properties for a general promotion or marketing piece. The broker should not arbitrarily push MLS information because this does not comply with the reproduction restrictions in the MLS rules. When a broker submits listing information to the MLS, it is clearly defined and limited purpose of disseminating that information to other MLS participants. The MLS allows participants upon the request of a potential purchaser or tenant to provide information obtained from the MLS. So if the agent wanted to forward the information electronically, the same rules apply. So for websites, the Internet IDX allows limited electronic display. I'm not going to go more into that, but it's just kind of when you're thinking about putting information out there on you know, social media, think about how you are using it. So if you're pushing and selecting information about properties for general promotion, this is not allowed. But versus pulling information to share it to a prospective buyer, that is the difference, and that is allowable. Then this again, and I've seen this before, so this will be the last one that I'm going to highlight. This actually an agent out in Lake Country, I think it's 2 years ago now, put out a big, huge mailer, not from our own company, thank God, but they put out a huge mailer advertising sold properties in the Lake Country area that were not listings of theirs. So, you know, they pulled KW listings, they pulled Coldwell Banker agents or listings, they pulled First Weber listings on this huge mailer that was very deceptive. It looked like it was properties that that firm had sold themselves or listed themselves. So here's the question. So several of the firm's agents have emailed complaints to the broker regarding ABC brokerage. The agent saw an ad in a local magazine with 25 listings where ABC brokerage agent states, "Nobody knows real estate better than I do. Let's find the home of your dreams." Then the ad included street addresses, list prices, bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, and active status. These listings are other companies' listings and not ABC brokerage listings. Is this legal? So again, when advertising another firm's listings, regardless of the media type, the licensee must have proper authority to advertise listings from other firms. The agents must have consent to advertise because the licensee may not advertise the listings of other firms without permission. If the information is obtained from the MLS, it may only be used with authority or consent per the MLS rules. If the listing broker and seller have not given consent, the licensee would need to clearly indicate that the licensee is not the listing agent. Have given consent, excuse me. So if the listing broker and seller have given consent for him to include those properties, the licensee would need to clearly indicate that the licensee is not the listing agent still. So I just want to kind of highlight these examples so that if you are thinking about doing, you know, a mailer or, you know, that you're just following these rules and making these considerations when you're putting together your marketing pieces. Any questions?
That was
Okay.
great coverage, though. A lot of good things.
Yeah, so don't lie, don't be deceptive. Make sure you're citing the source. I mean, I think that's where, honestly, where Joni and I see the biggest complaints is just when people are, you know, advertising listings and it appears as if they're their own, you know. That's where we get the most complaints from listing agents, like, you know, so-and-so is advertising my listing and they haven't come to me first, you know. And I also just want everyone to understand too that, like, we're all here to help one another. You know, I don't know that I've ever seen anyone flat out say no to somebody to advertise their listing, and it only helps them, you know. So you know, absolutely go ahead and go to that listing agent and say, "I saw your new listing, can I post about it on my Facebook page?" You know, and they'll say yes, of course. They should, you know, I can't think of anyone who has said no. So, and then of course, just citing them in the Facebook post. So this is a new listing, super cool. Check this awesome kitchen out. This is listed by Joan Reed of Keller Williams, you know, so that's the most important thing. Okay.
Super.
All right, well, we'll see you guys all tomorrow at team meeting. Again, December, we're just gonna be here with questions, and as I said before Joan hopped on, you know, we really like these question and answer periods too. A lot of discussion comes up. It's really helpful to hear what other people are asking. Because again, you don't know what you don't know, and we always like to say too, when you're new, use other people's examples to learn from. So, okay.
Thanks, Steph.
All right, see you guys soon. Thank you.